Hello, everyone. I am Flo Gardner, and I am the Executive Director of the Mendelssohn Chorus of Philadelphia. And I am so excited and thrilled to have this opportunity to welcome and introduce all of you to our wonderful new Artistic Director, Dominick DiOrio. I am joined here today by our board chair, Charlotte Sibley, and bass baritone Lucas DeJesus, who is also a section leader and a member of our Chorus Management Council. So hello, everyone. I first wanted to ask Charlotte a little bit about what the board of directors was looking for in a new artistic director for Mendelssohn Chorus. Charlotte?
Thank you, Flo. What we were looking for as we go into our 147th season and preparing for our 150th season was someone with a terrific artistic vision, someone who could take us to a new place, someone who would really help us raise the bar, who would be a partner to you, Flo, would be working closely with us as he or she explained the artistic vision. The board would make sure it happened with our strategic planning and funding process, and someone with whom we could build a long and lasting relationship.
And I would like to ask Dominick, why Mendelssohn Chorus and why now?
Hi, everyone. I am Dominick, and I am just so delighted to be the 14th artistic director of this historic arts and cultural organization in Philadelphia. And, I was excited by the history of adventurous programming that the chorus has had under Alan Harler and many of its previous directors. And it sort of enticed me to want to think, wow, I want to be a part of this. And looking at the place of an organization that has 147 years of history, that is something that is quite special, something that is quite unique, and something that has a rich opportunity for change and growth. And so when I first saw the posting, I thought, this is fantastic. And I had just heard the Mendelssohn Chorus perform at the Chorus America Conference with Tan Dun's Water Passion, and I was blown away by their artistic excellence, by their musical capacity, and by their willingness to take risks. And I thought, okay, maybe I could be a part of this too. Maybe I can help to bring something to this organization that will move it forward into a new time and a new place.
Dominick, you share something very similar to one of our prior artistic directors, Alan Harler. And I thought I'd just ask you a little bit about what your current role is at the Indiana University and what you can bring to the table at the Mendelssohn Chorus.
Thanks so much, Flo. Yeah, so I am a composer and a conductor, and I have the honor of directing at Indiana University Notice, originally called the Contemporary Vocal Ensemble, which Alan Harler founded in 1980. So in no small way, my career path right now, my artistic possibility would not have happened without Alan and his vision. So I feel really lucky and humbled to be stepping into this role at Mendelssohn Chorus, sort of in line with the progression that he's set up, with a way that he started in 1980 in Bloomington, Indiana, and in 1988 or 89, I believe, in Philadelphia. I feel like I'm following in the footsteps of a gentle giant, right? Someone who led wonderfully with charisma and humility. And so at IU, I get to lead these wonderful young people in music that is new, music that is exciting. And so I'm going to bring some of that to Philadelphia too, right? We have amazing composers in our backyard. People like Andrea Clearfield, who we already have a history with. People like Melissa Dunphy, who we don't and we hope to, right? So this is part of my hope for Mendelssohn Chorus, is that it can take its place in the Philadelphia scene of new music happenings in a way that feels really authentic and really grounded in the community.
Well, we're certainly excited for that as well. I also wanted to ask you, who are some of your biggest influences and inspirations, both as a conductor and a composer?
Yeah, so I have had the most amazing mentors as a conductor, right? Janet Galvan at Ithaca College was my first really important mentor. At Yale, it was Marguerite Brooks and Simon Carrington. Maggie Brooks, of course, is a Temple alumnus, so there's that connection as well. And as a composer, I've really, as a kid, I was inspired by those Americana voices of Bernstein and Copland. But as I've sort of grown up and developed, my musical interests have gotten much more wide-ranging and diverse. And I find that I'm inspired by whatever I'm listening to now. You know, it's a trope among conductors that the music you love most is the music you're conducting at that moment, right? There's something about, you know, the scores we study and how much we pour time and effort and love into them. And it brings us back to why music is an expression of the human condition and humanity, right? And right now, of course, our world is sort of a mess in many ways. You know, we've got a virus out of control. We have a long due reckoning with systemic racism and injustice. And choral organizations like Mendelssohn Chorus have a role to play in how we create a better world. And I can help with that by making sure the stages that we occupy, the voices we amplify, are representative of our world and our city.
Well, that's a perfect segue to Lucas. And Lucas, as a singer and somebody that's very involved with the chorus, you know, I'd love to ask you, you know, what excited you the most about the potential of working with Dominick?
It was definitely his commitment to diversity, both within the choir, within our audiences, bringing something to our city, our home, that is sometimes lacking from our choirs. We just get so resigned to just doing what we always do, and you know we do this well, so we'll just keep doing it, and nothing moves forward when we get stuck in that. So it's very exciting to have someone that's got not only such a brilliant mind in composing and in conducting, but is also so open with the types of people he's working with, the types of repertoire that we'll be doing. It's very exciting for me as a singer.
And I know, you know, Dominick and I started working together, you know, I think it was like the first or second week of March, right before, you know, the quarantine happened. And, you know, we had to think really fast on our feet, but Dominick came in with some really great ideas right away. And one of them was around shifting the language of some of our terminology. And I'd like to ask Lucas and Dominick to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So Dominick, actually a question for you. One of the things I noticed that's changing this year is my role. I'll no longer be a core singer this year. I will be a section leader. Similar responsibilities, but can you help understand why you thought that shift was important?
Absolutely. And thank you for asking. You know, language means so much, and it communicates in such subtle ways, but those subtle ways lead to sort of structural issues, right? And I think, for instance, I wrote an article for New Music Box a year or two ago about the terminology, quote, singers and musicians, right? Which we often find, and I quoted in the article I wrote that it was in the New York Times over 100 times over the last, you know, century or something. And it's problematic, right? Because it sends the subtle message that the two things are different, right? That they're mutually exclusive categories. Singers are, of course, musicians, right? They're not separate. In the same way, when we call our paid singers core singers, right, it sends the subtle message that the rest of the singers are not core to who we are or core to our work. And that to me is a very subtle distinction, and maybe it's one that's easy to accept over time and to just not worry about. But it sends a very subtle message that I want to avoid, which is that, you know, some singers are better than others, right? And that's not how I work as a collaborative artist. That's not part of my philosophy. So we started a conversation very early on. Even though I started July 1st, I began in a consulting role with the chorus April 1st, because we don't just plan a season in 3 days, right? And so I started having conversations with Flo and with board members about the terminology core singer, and we threw a number of ideas around until we came to the idea of section leader, right? Which seemed to encompass a sense of ownership and authenticity for everyone, right? It wasn't necessarily excluding some people from the role of vocal or solo artist. It wasn't saying some people are more important than others. But it sort of clarifies the role of these paid singers as being models for the organization, both in terms of artistic temperament, professional decorum, and in many ways, you know, community leadership.
And that's a great segue in terms of language to our name. You may have noticed now that people are saying Mendelssohn Chorus of Philadelphia. And we've had discussions over the years about the club and felt that now this is the time, as of this season, we are transitioning to Mendelssohn Chorus of Philadelphia to better describe, elucidate who we are, what we do, that we are a chorus, and to really foster an environment and commitment to more inclusivity. We feel that this is a really important, it may be subtle, but a very important piece of our evolution.
And Dominick, you started to hint at that inclusivity that we're talking about right now, and you said that Mendelssohn Club or community choirs in general have a role to play. So I want to ask you a couple things, and this is more of a little bit of a discussion topic I'd love to pick your brain about. First and foremost, what do you think our role is to play in the city of Philadelphia when it comes to issues like racial inequality and economic inequality? And secondly, how do we play a role in that when we look around and our choir is, let's face the fact, we're mostly a white choir, and that's sort of the field as we know it. Some of the things that I've noticed in the past about Mendelssohn Club is we generally perform in mostly white neighborhoods. We generally have mostly white audiences. And of course, that's reflective of the fact that we're generally mostly white. So how do we just combat this head on so that we are more diverse in both our audiences and our membership and the repertoire that we do?
Yeah, thank you, Lucas. It's a great question. And we sort of have a strange double-edged sword in this opportunity of the COVID-19 pandemic, because we can't go and perform in our usual spaces and in our usual neighborhoods right now. And we have the opportunity of opening up membership to the chorus to people who may not even be geographically exactly where we are. There are fewer barriers to access at the moment. And I can't remember who said it recently, but someone on a call said, don't let a good crisis go to waste, right? and we can use this time of sort of radical change to find transformative ways to innovate, to find ways of taking an organization that has been historically white, right, and move it into a direction of historically representing what our community looks like. And maybe that means we have to recognize that our community has to be a broader group of people, right? Maybe that means that we have to recognize that a musical performance organization, an arts organization, is first and foremost at its roots a cultural organization, and it has responsibilities to its community. And those are not things that change overnight, but they're also things that don't change by themselves, right? And so part of what we're going through this year, and I invite Charlotte to talk about this too, is a strategic planning process to try and figure out, who are we? What do we value? What is the mission and vision for the organization that we want to put forward? And I think we all agree that it's time to re-examine those values and to bring our singers into the process and to bring our community of stakeholders into the process. I'm not going to kick anyone out of the chorus because of the color of their skin, because I'm trying to bring in new people of different colors of their skin, right? That's not my goal. And I don't want to in any way devalue the long-time contributions of many of our members, some of whom have been singing for over 30, 40 years, right? That's not my goal. It's not to kick anyone out. But I am in charge of a couple of things, right? As artistic director, I control, staff hiring of artistic people, right? Section leaders, our pianist, collaborative pianist, and in normal times, we won't have them this year, but our assistant conductor and our conducting interns, right? I can be very strategic in those hires, right? Right now, of our 14 artistic staff members, half are people of color, right? And that's not something that happens without thought and without seeking out people for those roles that will be representative of our community. So there is no easy solution, but I think we're all oriented in the right direction to make sure that we see as a core value of who we are that change has to happen and that we can't ignore everything we've done, while also recognizing that we can't stay exactly in what we've already always done, because then we won't make it to our next anniversary after the coming one.
With that in mind, I know you and I started working on the season early and things like quickly shifted. It was like you planned like a full in-person season, then all of a sudden it was like, nope, not doing it. But I would love to hear, with what you just kind of talked about, how that influenced your programming choices for this year. And, what was like some of the most important things that came to mind as you were scoping out the season?
Yeah, thank you, Flo. I was really excited in like the first and second week of March to plan out these concerts that we would host. You know, one of them was going to feature a local poet. One of them was going to feature a long-time Philadelphia rooted mezzo-soprano that we all love. And I was excited in part because I was building a season that balanced the adventurous new music, oftentimes represented by our local homegrown composers, and the music that we have traditionally sung and loved. I was really looking forward to performing the Vaughan Williams Dona Nobis Pacem, which is one of my favorite works, right? But we, as you said, we quickly realized that that was not in the cards. And I remember we were planning at one point for me to come and visit, and then we're like, maybe you should stay where you are for a little while until, because the Philadelphia looks a little bit out of control with the virus at the moment, and that was true. And so then we started to think differently. Like, okay, what can a season be about if it's not about 3 concerts and 8 weeks of rehearsal before those concerts? What then does a chorus do? And it reframed the goals for a little while of what is most important, right? Because I can teach a chorus to sing a passage in tune. I can teach them to sing freely and with expression on a certain composer's passage. That I can do in a rehearsal or two, right? But the concept of rebuilding a community that has fallen apart or that has not met or that has become undone, that is years of work. And so for me, the priority this season is how can we stay meaningfully engaged with each other, whether musically in some ways, whether technologically in most ways, or most importantly, communally. How can we make sure that we are not just maintaining our community, but expanding and engaging our community at really deep levels? One of the things I've been doing in my period before hire, before July 1, was that I was meeting with all of the board members, with former artistic directors, with our honorary advisory council members, and with some key Philadelphia stakeholders and other organizational leaders to learn about, as much as I could, about Mendelssohn Chorus and what that meant to everyone. And then beginning in July, I've been meeting with the chorus in small groups of about 15 to 20 every week to hear from them about what Mendelssohn Chorus means to them. What are their hopes? What are their worries and anxieties right now? What are their desires for the future of the organization? And that listening has been key for me in helping to develop this virtual season. Right? So the virtual season we're going to do this year will have 6 what we're calling dialogues with Dominick. And it's a little weird because I am one of the featured artists, and I don't know how I'm going to dialogue with myself yet, but we'll figure that out. But we're going to bring in people like Andre Thomas to talk with us. You know, he wrote the book on the African-American spiritual. So he's going to come and talk with us about that as we prepare a virtual chorus on Moses Hogan's Hold On, the Keep Your Hand on the Plow spiritual. Right, so we're going to knit in a virtual chorus performance with other engagement opportunities for the singers. We're going to bring in people like Rollo Dilworth and Alicia Lee, who are connected to Philadelphia. They're going to be artists in residence with us this year, and they're going to be involved in a number of events over the year, including some big sings and some sing-along opportunities for our singers. And together in September, the 2 of them are going to lead us in a conversation about our Philadelphia choral community. What does it mean to be a part of that, right? This will be grounded in our strategic visioning and planning and goals, right, and determining who we are. So we have an opportunity to take our weekly Wednesday night rehearsals and not just think about what is the product we need to perform and invite people to in 8 weeks. Instead, we can think more about our entire process in making our gathering space, even on Zoom, be something that is really intentional in a multi-dimensional way. So we're not just looking about readiness for performance, we're looking at community engagement, we're looking at guest artist interaction, we're looking at alumni reaching out, we're looking at involving people from the community in our discussions. And I think that's key to what this year can be for us right now, in a time of great upheaval and great change and great transformative possibility.
So you heard Dominick say before, never waste a good crisis. I think it might have been FDR or someone who said, and we're trying not to. Some groups have been paralyzed, and we're grateful that we have a very active board, a very engaged board, and we are not wasting a crisis. In fact, what we've said was, all right, what do we need to unlearn? And what do we need to do differently? What do we need to start? What do we need to stop? And what do we need to accelerate? Obviously, we're not performing in person, and you've heard some of the things that we're doing from Dominick, but from a board level, we have said, okay, this is the time for a couple of things that we have not either had the opportunity, the resources, or the time to do. And one of them, as you heard, was the strategic plan. We've had several strategic plans in the past, 4-year strategic plans. We put the most recent one on hold as we went through the artistic search process. And now with Dominick and his input, now we're ready to roll. The committee's been formed and we're rolling. And a lot of the input that you heard Dominick say that we're getting from stakeholders, from the community, from singers, from the board, that will be part of it. One of the key pieces of the strategic plan has been to develop a more lasting infrastructure, and that we are doing. We've hired several people part-time so that they can help Flo and make sure that we have an infrastructure that is sustainable for the future, for a sustainable organization. The other major thing that we're doing is putting together, establishing a formal development committee and development process. We've had a lot of turnover, so we have not been as continuous as we would like, and now that is in process. In fact, just a couple of recent meetings and starting to look at some clear plans and processes, which will again build a sustainable organization. Because that's what we wanted to present to the artistic director whom we hired. And when we hired Dominick, one of the things we were particularly interested in was composing and commissioning. And as you build your vision, can you talk to us about the commissions that you have done, that you're thinking about? You've mentioned a few, but could you elaborate a bit?
I would be happy to. Thank you, Charlotte. And, I just have to express my gratitude to you and the board and to the entire staff as well for allowing me to come in at this time and being ready to move forward and not to hibernate, right? Because many organizations are sort of not shutting down, but certainly taking time off. And I'm really excited that I am able to come in at this time and be ready to actualize some of my vision, right? And that would not be possible without you, the board, and our many donors and stakeholders who have given during this time to help us stay afloat. So let me first just say thank you for that. One of the things... Yes. One of the things that we can do to show that, we are determined in our future planning is commissioning, right? Commissioning is by its very nature saying, let's plant a seed, right? And when we plant that seed, let's see what will grow from it, right? It's saying we want to invest in something. We want to invest in art and music and the creative process. And we want to create new art for our time that will be reflective of who we are now. Right? It's a trope on NPR that you hear that all music was new once, right? And it's true that we don't really know with every commission if we're going to get the next Anthracite Fields like we did in 2015, right? The next groundbreaking, earth-shattering piece. But we might, and we definitely won't if we don't commission, right? So we have 3 works this year that we have invested in. 2 of the works are by Taek-soo Kim, Korean-American composer who teaches on the West Coast and who went to Indiana University and who I met through my role here. And Melissa Dunphy, who is in your own backyard here in Philadelphia, right? She has been on Rachel Maddow, and she has been active in so many ways in Philadelphia. And I know Flo could talk about her blog posts for hours and how exciting they are, right? But Melissa Dunphy is one of these amazing Philadelphia composers who we haven't worked with in an intentional way. So this commission is a way to do so. She and Taek-soo will both be writing works for our current season. Originally, they were writing works for our in-person programming, but they're both designing works that could be virtual chorus performances if we want them to be, right? So we are going to perform at least one and probably both of them in a virtual format this year, in addition to giving the live in-person premiere a year from now. In addition, our third commission is a project that began before me, but has really taken up speed and steam and energy since I've come on board. And that is by Andrea Clearfield. And that is an incredible project called Beyond the Binary, which focuses on the origins of the term robot, right? And what that means now, 100 years later, at a time when AI and technology have become something that is at once both convenient and at other times life-threatening, right? And so Andrea, in conjunction with librettist Ellen Frankel and with instrument maker David Kontak, is writing us a major work for the fall of 2021, and that is supported by an NEA grant, National Endowment for the Arts, which is helping to make that major commission possible. So commissioning, right, while the word itself feels a little, I don't know, long. The process of bringing new music to life is the very essence of what we do as artists. And I am thrilled and excited that we have the Alan Harler New Ventures Fund, which is helping to support these. We have some donors in our organization who have given very generously to help support these. And we have the robust funding from the NEA as well to help make these projects possible as we look towards our in-person programming again, when it is safe to do so. We are at right on the dot with 100 of our volunteer singers and our 12 section leaders at the moment. And anyone is still welcome to join, right? If you see this video today and you think, I miss the meaningful experience of being together with people, come our way, right? Come and sing with us.
Well, I just wanted to thank everyone, Lucas and Charlotte and Dominick, for joining us today. When we looked at planning this season, we really concentrated on what would make a meaningful musical experience, not only for our chorus, but for the community at large. And I think we were very successful with that. And we can't wait to share the season details with all of you. So with that, I'd like to pass it on to Dominick for any last words.
I have one more thing I'd like to add. I'm president of the National Collegiate Choral Organization right now, and our organization right now also sort of took some time to look at what was going on in our world and think, what could we do to respond? And one of the things we did was a social media campaign, #ChoirIsNotOver. And I think that's really something to remember right now, right? I think before the coronavirus pandemic, we were maybe not as appreciated as musical organizations live performing. You could take for granted the fact that you can go hear an orchestra or a choir or a band, go and see a drama production, right? And now suddenly you can't. And that is striking to so many people, not just the fact that there is this absence in their lives from so many other things, but their art making, their music making, their interaction with the creative process has been disrupted. And so when we can gather again, we will be ready for the influx of folks who want to come and hear us again. We will be ready for you to come and join us. And even though the outlook of the virus and the pandemic is sort of maybe not in the most positive direction at the moment, I have hope that we will get this under control and we will sing again in person. And that we are looking at ways to do that safely for our members in the most appropriate ways when it's best likely and the weather is good enough to potentially do so outside. So stay with us. Wait around. We'll still be here at the end.